Hey, this is Her Voice Unfiltered, where the words don't ask for permission, they just arrive. I'm Michonne, poet, healer, storyteller, and this right here, this is where we feel it before we fix it. So, let's put some feeling to these words. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to Her Voice Unfiltered. Tonight, we're talking about something many of us carry without even realizing it: stories. Not the stories we tell other people, the stories we tell ourselves. The quiet narratives that begin after heartbreak, after disappointment, after rejection, after grief. The stories that whisper things like, maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I'm too much. Maybe everyone leaves. Maybe love isn't meant for me. Maybe this is all I'll ever be. What's interesting is that many of those stories don't start with us. Sometimes they were planted by someone else's opinion, someone else's failure to see our value, someone else's inability to love us properly. But after hearing them long enough, we begin repeating them in our own voice. And that's when the story becomes dangerous, because we stop questioning it and we start living it. So tonight we're exploring the difference between who we are and who we've been told we are. The difference between reality and narrative, truth and assumption, healing and survival. So stay with me for a moment. Let's begin. Sometimes the loudest lies don't come from other people. They come from within. This first piece is for anyone who has ever mistaken a wound for identity. This is called the stories we tell ourselves. I used to think the most dangerous stories were the ones people told about me. The assumptions, the labels, the versions of me created from a single mistake, a single season, a single moment they never bothered to understand. To some people, I was too loud. To others, too quiet, too sensitive, too independent, too forgiving, too intimidating, too much. And somehow, all those conflicting opinions found a place to sit inside my head. I carried them home. I fed them. I protected them. I let them live rent-free, not because they were true, but because they were repeated. And repetition has a funny way of dressing itself up as truth. So I started introducing myself through their narratives, apologizing for strengths they called flaws, questioning gifts they called arrogance, shrinking dreams they called unrealistic. Until one day, I stood in the middle of my own life and realized I could no longer hear myself. Only echoes, only opinions, only stories. Stories written by people who knew my name but not my journey, who witnessed a chapter and assumed they understood the book, who met the survivor without ever meeting the woman who survived. And maybe that's the problem. We spend so much time trying to correct the stories others tell that we never question the stories we've started telling ourselves. The story that says you're too broken to begin again. The story that says you're too old to start over. The story that says everyone leaves, nothing changes, love hurts, dreams die, and healing belongs to everybody else. But what if those stories are just old tenants occupying sacred space? What if they stayed so long you forgot they were guests? What if the truth is you were never who they said you were? You were never who fear said you were either. Maybe you are simply a woman becoming, learning, growing, unlearning, and maybe the story was never that you were not enough. Maybe the story is that you survived enough to finally see yourself clearly. So now, when the old narratives come knocking, don't invite them in. Don't set the table. Don't make room. Because this mind, this heart, this life belongs to me. And I'm finally learning to tell a different story. It's amazing how often we can recognize the strength in everyone else while struggling to see it in ourselves. We can celebrate other people, encourage other people, believe in other people, yet stand in front of a mirror and question our own reflection. Maybe that's because growth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes healing happens so gradually that the person in the mirror doesn't recognize who she's becoming. Which brings me to our next piece. There are seasons when we're evolving faster than your self-image can keep up. This poem is for the woman who is still introducing herself to her own greatness. The woman in the mirror doesn't know she's her yet. The woman in the mirror still studies herself like a stranger, tilts her head, questions her reflection, searches for evidence of the woman she's been praying to become, as if transformation arrives with an announcement, as if healing rings the doorbell and introduces itself by name. She doesn't see the boundaries where apologies used to live. She doesn't notice the peace occupying rooms that chaos once rented. She still measures herself against old versions of survival, still expecting to find brokenness in places God has already restored. She is looking for a woman who sleeps peacefully without realizing she finally rested. Looking for a woman who chooses herself without recognizing she already did. Looking for a woman who trusts her voice while speaking truths she once whispered. The woman in the mirror keeps asking, where is she? While wearing her courage, while carrying her wisdom, while standing on the very prayers that brought her here. Because becoming isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like laughing again, buying yourself flowers, setting boundaries, starting over, walking away, staying, breathing, living. Sometimes healing is so quiet, you mistake it for ordinary life. And maybe that's why the woman in the mirror doesn't recognize herself. She expects fireworks, God sent consistency. She expects perfection, God sent growth. She expects arrival, God sent evolution. So every morning, she stands there, searching for the woman she hopes to become, not realizing the woman she's searching for is searching back, smiling softly, waiting patiently, thinking, baby, it's been you all along. Now her mirror becomes the witness, the evidence, the reminder, the friend that gently says, look again. You're not who you used to be. Look again. You're stronger than you think. Look again. She's already here. One of the hardest lessons in adulthood is learning that not every thought deserves permanent residence in your mind. Some opinions belong to other people. Some assumptions were never yours to carry. And some stories have simply overstayed their welcome. Yet, somehow, we let them live rent-free. This next piece speaks directly to that. Because not every thought deserves access. Not every opinion deserves authority. And not every version of you deserves to survive your healing. This piece is called The Truths I Keep. Some truths work better in silence. Yeah. Held gently between the tongue and the edge of almost spoken. Because once they leave the sanctuary of the mouth and the mind, their strength evaporates. Soft, sudden, like a ring of salt disturbed too soon. Protection dissolves right there in the mud of other people's opinions. See, everybody can't hold what God whispered to you in private. Everybody can't carry what was only meant to live in your chest. So some truths I keep tucked, wrapped like satin under this bonnet, protected, preserved, still breathing. Not because they were weak, oh no, but because I finally learned not everything powerful was meant to be spoken out loud. What I've learned is that healing isn't always about becoming someone new. Sometimes it's about remembering who you were before the world convinced you to doubt yourself, before the criticism, before the disappointment, before the labels, before the fear. And when that happens, you stop apologizing for your existence. You stop shrinking. You stop negotiating your worth. You simply become fully, boldly, without permission. So, for the woman learning to trust herself again, for the person rewriting their narrative, for anyone choosing authenticity over approval, this final piece is called Unapologetic You. I had to unlearn the choreography of acceptable pain. Now, my truth proudly walks barefoot through ancestral rain. I stopped dimming my fire to allow fragile egos to breathe. Your mind, body, and soul are a thesis most are afraid to read. I am not confrontation. I am clarity in this caramel hue, a mirror that is too honest for illusions to pursue. I no longer negotiate my worth at tables built on fear, nor shrink my voice to make discomfort disappear. I spent too many seasons translating myself into versions others could consume, only to discover authenticity blooms where approval cannot bloom. So, I stand here, unedited, unmuted, unafraid of the room. If my evolution disrupts the fiction you once knew, that is not my apology. That is me honoring the unapologetic you. Thank you for spending this time with me. If tonight's conversation resonated with you, I hope you'll remember this. You are not every thought you've ever had. You are not every mistake you've ever made. You are not every label someone placed on your life. You are certainly not every story fear has tried to tell you. You are still becoming, still growing, still discovering who you are beneath all the noise. So, be careful what stories you repeat to yourself, because eventually you will believe them. Make sure they're worthy of the person you're becoming. So, until next time, take care of yourself. Speak kindly to the person in the mirror. And therapy complete.